Okay, so actually all data right now comes into, in one way or another, into flow from CSV files. So as you probably know, that's the way we populate swarms of data. What I'm going to focus on today is not that part of things, but I'm going to talk about some very specific elements of charts that there is an option when you're specifying how you want to handle that element. One of your options in the flow editor is, hey, do you want to control this element from a column in a CSV file? So the first thing I'm going to talk about here, I've got a use case. A couple of months ago, I was giving a class to a company in France. It's a broadcasting company. They're going to be covering the French elections. So I thought it was probably good form here if I chose some colorization of my presentation to be the colors of the two major parties in France. And so what I did is I went onto the internet and I found the colors of President Macron's party, which is a yellow, a type of yellow. Okay, and I found a blue kind of color, which kind of blends in with my background, unfortunately. But this is the color of the Marine Le Pen's party in France. So, just right off the bat, what I wanted to do is I wanted to show the data that I'm dealing with in this presentation. And I always advise our customers when they bring a new swarm of data onto a screen, it's always presented in this random as a random cube of data. It's 1 meter wide, 1 meter high, and 1 meter in depth. So this is actually a 3D space, and I can look at this from different angles. And I always recommend that the users put clickability onto these dots right away, because as they generate additional steps in the flow, they can duplicate what they've done on the first step, so they don't have to be reapplying these pop-ups on each and every step. They can do it once, and then for every step that has to do with that same swarm of data, all that work can be inherited by the next step. Okay. So it's clickability, and same goes for colorization also. So I'm starting off here. This is my default random chart. I've got a CSV file. I'm just going to look at it here real quick. It's a pretty simple CSV file. It's got the region in France. Okay. It's got an alphabetical order, which we're not going to use here. It's got population. It's got the candidate and an attribute that applied to the candidate for that region of France. In this case, I'm looking both at votes and percentage of votes. I'm carrying them both in the same CSV file. And I have a column over here called color 1. This is the actual color that I want to appear when I'm displaying a dot that corresponds to this particular record in the CSV file. So in this CSV file, it's a short file. I've only got 68 records, and it has to do with voting results in the last presidential election in France in 2017. And by the way, there's another election coming up in France like in the next month or so. So anyway, it's kind of a timely topic. And I have a couple of value forms of value columns, which represent the percentages or number of votes, depending on what the category type is over here. So a pretty simple CSV file. Okay, I'm going to go on to my next step here, and there were quite a few steps that preceded this step, but since I'm going to be showing you several use cases today, I just am showing you kind of the end point. I'm not showing you all the intermediate steps. So on this particular chart, what I've got the regions of France going along the x-axis here. I've got the two principal candidates, President Macron and Le Pen, who lost to Macron in the last election. And this was the actual results from the 2017 election. A yellow chart, that is Macron's party. This is the percentage achieved in each of these regions by Macron in 2017. And the kind of greenish bluish color here, this is the Le Pen's, the percentage of votes that Le Pen achieved in each of these regions of France. So the way that I've imparted this colorization, once again, I'm just going to show you here, is that I've used the color column in the CSV file. It's called color 1. And as I'm defining my colors for this swarm here, if I scroll down here, let me get this menu of attendees out of the way here. Okay. As I scroll down here, I'm going to come to the colors. And instead of using our standard neon green color for dots and connections, what I'm doing here is I'm saying I want the color here to be defined by the hex values in a column in the particular CSV file that I'm using here, and the column name is color 1. And that's how I got the colors on this bar chart. And by the way, this bar chart in flow terms, a bar chart is comprised of members where 2 dots are connected, and the dots are presented in a minutely small way, so you don't even see the dots. And they're connected together by what we call connections. And the connections in this case are very thick to give this bar chart kind of look. So, it's kind of that's not the subject of this topic today, but doing bar charts in Flow is easy to do. You just have to know how to do it. But bar charts can be easily generated from dots and connections between the dots. So the point of this one was driving color from a CSV file. I had a second CSV file over here, by the way. This is a tiny little legend file. It's only got 2 rows in the file, so I'll show you what it looks like here. Yeah, this is the name of Macron's party. This is the name of Le Pen's party. This is the color that I'm using to colorize the dots on this legend. And this is a value. It's either 1 or 2. And basically what that 1 or 2 does is it puts these dots in order. This is 1, this is 2. This is actually a tiny little scatter plot where the axes have been made invisible. Okay. So I've actually got 2 swarms of data on this, both tied into the same colorization where the dots are colored by the color specified in the CSV file. Okay. And, can I pause here? Any questions on that so far? Okay. Okay, next use case. Here what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a globe with a bunch of country data. Out here floating in space right now is a data value for every country in the world. This particular data value here is, the country is Cabo Verde, okay? This, let's see, this dot here, Belgium, okay? This ranking, by the way, is Belgium is the 80th largest country in the world in my data set, according to population, 12 million people. Let me just take a look at one more dot here. This is Sweden, 91st ranking company, 10 million people. Okay. So each dot represents population for a country in the world. So we've got these dots floating in space above the globe. What I'm going to do here on my next chart here is I'm going to connect all those dots to the globe. Since this is an exercise in color, I left out a lot of intermediate steps here. But what I'm showing you is the ability to drive dot color from the CSV file and connections, and also the dot size. So the innovation on this that you haven't seen before is the dot size is being controlled by the CSV file. So let's take a quick look at the CSV file. To look at that, I click on the swarm of dots I'm looking at, and then I can open the CSV file from here. So this is a pretty simple CSV file too. It's got country name. It's got the population. It's got the population in millions, which is a little bit easier to cope with. It's got a ranking from 1 to, I think there are 30 countries in this data set. So China is the largest country in the world. It's got a ranking of 1, and India is number 2. It's got a color column here, which I call section underscore color. This is the color that the sections of this CSV chart are going to be colored. And each section of the CSV chart is contrived in the following way. The top 10 countries by population in the world have a value of 5. The next 10 have a value of 4. The next 20 have a value of 3, and so on. So, what I wanted to do in this particular use case here is I just wanted to show you the 30 most populous countries in the world, and I'm using colorization to control, or I'm using this population section to control both the color of the dot and also the dot size. So here is how you specify a dot size in a CSV file. The dot sizes that can be specified in a CSV file have to be between 0 and 1 in value. And a dot size of 1 basically takes up the whole screen. It's one big dot. A dot size of 0.05 here, you'll see is a fairly large dot, but not anywhere near taking up the whole screen. And a dot size of 0.035 is my second layer, and my third type dot size is 0.025. And then if I showed some of these dots further down, which I don't in this particular visualization I'm going to show you, the dots would be progressively getting smaller. So here's a case where I'm driving the dot size from the CSV file. So here's the result. The top 10 countries of the world are shown here in large red dots. This is Indonesia. It's the 4th largest country in the world. This one over here is Nigeria. You have to scroll around to see where it is in Africa. Okay. So anyway, the 10 largest countries in the world are red, and they've got large dots. And you can see the population action in the world really is in this swath of longitude here. We've got Russia, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, China, and Indonesia. 6 of the largest countries in the world population-wise are in that one sector of viewing. My second tier, my orange tier, that's the next 10 largest. So you can see a bunch of these countries are kind of spread around, okay, around the world, several more in Asia and the like. Green is the third tier. These are the next 10 largest countries. And you can see these are clustered a lot in Europe, where the land masses are small, but the density is large. But these countries are not amongst the top 10 in size, but they are predominant between the top 20 and 30. So this is a chart to represent all that. Let me show you how it's defined in the flow editor. So I'm looking at 2 things. One is the dot size. Instead of being a fixed dot size, which we often have in charts, this one I chose to be driven by a column in the data, which is called dot size. So that's how I'm getting the different dot sizes here. The color, we've seen this before. Instead of being our standard neon green or whatever, I decided, okay, I want to drive this colorization from a hex value in a column in the CSV file. Okay, so the innovation we've done on this step is we've driven the dot size from the CSV file. We go into this next step. Okay, there's another thing you can drive from the CSV file, and that's a label. So if you have a requirement that you want to have a label accompanying your data, and you want to make it kind of a compound or an unusual display of a label, you can do that by generating the label in the CSV file and then fetching the label from the CSV file. So what I've done here, I just made up a requirement, and I said, hey, I want to have the country name, I want to have a parenthesis, I want to have the rank, and then a closed parenthesis. That's the label that, for whatever reason, I wanted to put on my chart here. So the way I did that, let me show you this particular CSV file here. focus on the swarm again. I'm going to open this. So my label here, I'm called it special label. This is an Excel function. It's the concatenation of column A, which was the first column, which is the country, parenthesis, and then this the sequence or the ranking, this column here. So that's how I computed my label using typical Excel techniques, let's say. So I've got that in my CSV file. And now if I want to craft my label, so I'm using that column from the CSV file, I am showing here the, let's see, the label here is, oh, it's this field in the CSV file. It's called special label. I don't even need to put any other conditionals on it because I've already got it identified in the CSV file. And when you're putting a label onto something, you're selecting a combination of fields from a CSV file. So here, what I did is I just chose that last column that I computed using typical Excel techniques. So labels can be very fancy. They can be very customized. And if you can generate them using, let's say, Excel techniques, if it doesn't fit into the model of exactly how labels are constructed in Flow, you can generate the label in whatever format you want and put it on the CSV file. And put it on the chart via the CSV file. Any questions on that? Okay. Okay, the final thing, I'm going to show you a graph chart demo. So, okay, you probably, if you've poked around in our featured flows, perhaps you've seen a chart that looks like this. This is a forced graph type of chart. And what I've done here is from the CSV file, I'm actually driving the connections between these dots. And this is meant to be a geometric progression of some sort where I'm progressing disease spread or some such process in the real world. Okay. So what I've done here, I'll show you what my CSV file looks like on this one. So I'm going to click on the chart here. And I'm going to go over here under the data source. I'm going to see what this CSV file looks like. Forget about all these columns out to the right. That's just data. Okay. What the column I'm really interested in here are the first column, which is what I call an index. And R1 means this is row 1, row 2, row 3. And this will go down to row 511. That's in the first column. The second column is the column I'm using to drive the connections between these dots. And what I'm saying is the dot at this dot R1, I want that to be connected to dots R2 and R3. Dot R2, I want to be connected to dots R4 and R5, and so on. So what I've built up here is a connection, is a series of connections of the dots. And I've actually put that into the second column in the CSV file. Now, as this matrix of dots expands, eventually we reach out to leaf nodes, and we no longer need to connect the leaf nodes. I mean, that's the end of a branch of connections. So there are no connections for the second half of the dots in this particular CSV file. So once I've set this up, what it comes out looking like when I display it is like this. So every dot is a parent of two other dots. And by the time I'm getting out here to the leaf nodes, there are no more connections that I'm making. On this particular chart, I've chosen to use a color scheme. I've chosen one of our standard color schemes. Let me just show you what that is here. So if I go down to colors, I'm saying I want to use a color scheme. I want to colorize by a column in the CSV file called step, and I want to use our default colors, which are kind of a popular color scheme that we use. So that's how the colors are being driven. Before I get into the last step here, any questions on this so far? Okay, so I'm either being crystal clear or I'm totally confusing everybody. We'll find out a little bit later when we get to questions and answers. So yeah, so here, what I did after I did this, I gave myself a task, and that was I wanted to find the origin of this. And I tell you, I poked around in here. I could not find the origin. I probably spent 5 or 6 minutes, and I clicked on all sorts of dots. I could never find the origin of this forced graph. So that's the question I have here. Where is the origin of this graph? I mean, I really tried hard to find R1, which is the origin. I just couldn't find it. So I said, okay, how about if I take the topic of this discussion and use it to provide my answer? So what I did here is I went into the CSV file. Let me show the CSV file to you again. And I decided, hey, I was going to drive the dot size from the CSV file also. So I put in a new column in my CSV file. I made the origin dot twice the size of every other dot. And that was a gut feel I had, hey, if I do this, I'm going to have a lot easier time finding the origin of this mess of dots. So let's see what happens when I go to my next step. Yeah, my next step, okay. I looked at it immediately. I could find my origin dot, row 1, which is connected to row 2 and 3. So this took me a microsecond. Once I had done this, visually, I could find that dot instantly, whereas before I literally could not find it. So anyway, that's another example of a benefit. It's kind of a crazy example, I guess, but it's an example of a benefit you can get by driving the dot size from the CSV file. It can help you find a lost dot in a morass of other dots. And that is the end of this discussion of driving labels, connections, dots, and colors from the CSV file. Any questions before we get into a kind of a general question and answer session? Okay, let's open it up for general questions then. Some of you must have some questions, whether it pertains to this topic or some other topic. And Michael, Sierra, and I are all here to do our best in answering your questions. Okay, well, let's see what we might have to do here.
Bill?
Yes.
A couple of a question from David in the chat.
Okay.
Asking about scripting language filters between the CSV and the flow. Did you want to answer that one, or do you want me to?
Why don't you take it, Sierra?
Okay. Yeah. So we don't have anything kind of like custom in terms of filters, but you can always apply those changes to the CSV file itself before you upload it. We're working on like more custom logic for filters and labels and things like that, but that's still in progress. So.
Yeah. What I was thinking, Sierra, the problem is that, like, if you deal with data a lot, that one of the problems is stuff gets out of whack, and so you end up with inconsistent. And if Bill's come from a relational database background, he'd be well aware of that as an issue. So it's kind of like, yeah, you could. I'm just trying to think about how you do the version control. If you allow some interactivity with a user, where they can, with a customer, where they can actually start to sort of drive how things look a bit and so on, which would be really handy, and for some of the use cases I've got in mind would be very useful. But then there's that, how do you sort of tie that back to the original CSV file? How do you make sure that what they're saying is actually reflects what they think they're currently saying and stuff like that? But, I mean, if there was some kind of scripting language extension, then you could see how that would work. But and you can certainly make it work with a pipeline based on the original CSV file, which you then put through a series of changes. But yeah, it's just that keeping everything so it doesn't get out of whack and incoherent. That's all.
Yeah, a good observation. See, I don't think I have anything on that particular topic to add, Sierra. Do either you or Michael?
I don't. I can ask Michael to come back and see if he has any
No,
thoughts.
it's okay. It's a future feature maybe. If you haven't got it right now, then that's fine.
Yeah, honestly, I know what you're talking about, kind of thinking about like Tableau and like other kind of softwares that do data visualization are more like they have like where you can write a Python script or an R script and kind of integrate that into the workflow. We have focused a little bit more on the storytelling side of things rather than data analytics, but it's definitely a good idea for a future feature.
Yeah, sure.
Let me take the question real quick here about how you load a CSV file into Flow. Sure. Yeah, so I've been just dealing with the swarm dialog here on the right-hand side. If I wanted to reload the CSV file for this particular swarm of data, all I need to do is click on that edit, come over here. It's going to show me what my CSV file looks like. Come over here and I can choose file, and I can navigate to a file on my hard drive. Turns out I happen to have this set to a file where I keep a lot of training data, CSV data files. So all I need to do is navigate to where I have my updated CSV file, pick that, and then open it, and it will load in and replace the data that's there. That's how you initially get data into your CSV file, and that's how you refresh. Now, on refreshing, here's the rules. So if you've gone in and in your flow, you've configured filters and connections and other attributes of your charts using the column names of the CSV file, it's not good form to reload a CSV file and change those column names, because it's going to break the referential integrity within Flow. Flow is going to be expecting a column called dot size. And if you call that column new dot size or something, is going to get very confused, because there is no column that's been used yet called new dot size. And even worse, the old dot size column is no longer going to be there. So it's always fine when you're refreshing your data, it's perfectly fine to add columns, and it's perfectly fine to change the data in any way you want. It's just not fine to change the names of columns that you've used to define certain aspects of the flow. Let's see. I'll also show you one other thing. That we do have a menu over here, which is 3 dots menu. There's several useful things that can be gotten over here. One is data sources. If you want to see all your data sources in one line here for this flow, you can come in here. Usually when I'm refreshing my data files, I do it through this dialog because everything's here in front of me. And sometimes if I'm doing 2 or 3 at a time, I can just go bang, bang, bang and refresh all 3 data files. So technique is the same. You click the edit button and then you search for the file on your hard drive, pick the right file, and then load it into Flow. Very predictable, very reliable, and extremely widely used.
Quick question to follow up. Do you have the capability to have it auto refresh the data, or do you have to go and do the steps and edit and find the file? And then the second part is, can you connect multiple files together with using relational databases?
Yeah, we have heavy duty initiatives going right now that have to do with data refreshing. Like probably half of our engineering group right now is working on data integration activity of one sort or another. So we're in a period of rapid progress in that area. On today's date, April 7th, 2022, the vast majority, actually almost all of our refreshing is done in the way I just showed, where a CSV file is pumped into Flow in the way I just described. We do have a couple customers though, where we have enabled a real-time relational database query, and we have queries that are being used to populate swarms of data for those two customers. This is still a work in process. We haven't released that functionality globally yet. But if you had a particular need where you needed to do that, we could certainly talk with you and come up with a solution that would probably work for you, not knowing more about your use case. Now, if I were to fast forward, let's say 4 or 5 months from now, I think these kinds of things will be much more common than they are right now. And our goal is to be able to integrate with a wide variety of data sources in a push button or even automatic timed refresh manner. So stay tuned. We'll have a lot of interesting things coming down the pike in the next few months from that particular topic.
To add on to that, Bill, we do also have the Google Sheets integration. So if you want to connect to a Google Sheet and then, make changes in your Google Sheet, there's a way that you can do that as well. So that way you don't have to re-upload it every time. You can just hit the refresh button there in your Google Sheet, and then that'll automatically pull in the new link. And I see Andres had 2 questions. One was about Snowflake. I'm not familiar with Snowflake, but I don't think that's something we support right now. I'm interested in hearing more about what that does and what the use case would be. And then the other question was about scalability. I guess, could you talk a little bit more like what you mean about scalability, like in terms of amount of data or like sharing purposes?
Sure. So first one, Snowflake is one of the biggest cloud integrations available right now. And so many of the technologies right now in data warehouses are supported and built in Snowflake. And
yeah,
second one.
And Snowflake is one of those data sources that we have our eyes on for building integrations too. Yeah, we have several requests for that. We don't have that real time right now, but we'll have that in the not too distant future.
Okay, that sounds good. And the second question about what are the volumes of data, the volumes in terms of data that these could support?
Okay, for right now, it's important to us that these flow data visualizations run on phones as well as on mid-range or powerful laptops. Let me call them that. So right now we have a kind of a restriction that we don't want you to be putting in the number of dots that's greater than like 75,000 dots for display on a single chart. And by the time you get 75,000 dots on a chart, I mean, that chart is really full of dots. So that is a limit right now. So if you were going to try to put 1 million dots on a chart, Flow would complain when you tried to do that, and it would just tell you, hey, you've got too many dots for what we're allowing right now. I think as time goes on, we'll increase the size of that, but we're also hoping that phones become more malleable in the way they can handle huge numbers of dots as well as 2D screens. There's really no upper limit. There's no theoretical upper limit that is driving this. It's a practical upper limit just for the reasons I just described.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Did you have anything else on that, Sierra?
No, I just put in the chat that 1 dot equals 1 row in the CSV file because I think maybe new users, that's not something that they're familiar with.
Right. Yep. So, any other questions in the chat right now? Have you seen, Sierra? Let's see. Okay, I think we've answered the what's the scalability. Another Andres question. Yeah, okay, I don't see any other questions. Are there any other general questions? Can be on any topic having to do with flow.
One question just came in from Salim. asking, does the experience change for users who don't have access to Flow and content is shared with them? So if you have a Flow link, you can access it and view it the same as anybody if you're a registered user or if you're not. So if you go to a.flow.gl, you don't need to log in to view any of our featured flows. And so then when you have access to Flow and you're able to log in, then you can use the editor to upload your own data and build your own flows and everything like that. But as far as when content's shared, anybody can access that with just the URL.
Yeah, just
I've got one. Oh, go ahead. Did somebody just have a question?
Just a quick question. So the way that, I've used a lot of tools over the years, and the way you initially start is by copying something that someone else has already done, typically a tutorial or something, and then modifying that. How does that process work with Flow?
It works great with Flow. Like, for example, this flow that I put together here, if you want to see how, let me go back to this step right here. If you want to see how this step works, from a swarm perspective, if I click on the definition of swarm 2 on step 4, everything that's configurable in this swarm is laid out for you right over here. You can go over here and you can completely reverse engineer what I've done here. You can see how I've controlled the size, how I've controlled colors. You can see how I've chosen the map and associated the map through with the swarm of data through the region column name. You'll be able to see the sizes that I've put into various aspects of this.
What do I actually kind of copy, Bill? Is there something that's sort of some element, some identifiable file or something that I physically pick up, copy, rename, and then start editing with a Flow editor to build a new one?
Yeah, Bill, if you want to just show the featured flows and just show how to save a copy.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, let me close this. Okay. I might want to come back to this flow just for a couple seconds, but if you go out onto our featured flows page here, and you can find that at a.flow.gl. Okay. You go to the featured flows. Let's see. Let me get it to come up here. Oh, I've still got my filter on here. Just take my filter off. Okay, so we've got 25 flows out here. They're all different. They all have interesting types of visualizations. Most of them are copyable. I don't know if every single one is copyable, but most of them are. So what you can do here is if you come out here to this particular flow and you say, let's say you've got a flow user ID and you're accessing this from your flow user ID. If you want to save a copy of this flow, you can say save a copy and edit. And what it will do, it'll put this particular flow into your folder. It's going to take me a second to get to that point. Yeah, okay, so now I've got it. It's actually putting this particular flow into my folder, and it's going to give me a chance to edit it. Let me see.
Excellent. That's what I was after. Thanks.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, it popped up. Yeah, so you'd be able to reverse engineer this flow too. You just put your, highlight a particular cell that you're interested in. And the muscle memory in working with flow is you click in a cell down here on the timeline, then you look over to the right to see how it's done or to do it. Okay, this is for swarms. If you want to take a look, let me just go down to a text object, let's say. Text objects are blue. If I'm interested in this particular text object, this is the one that says Northern Hemisphere. This shows exactly how that text object is configured, shows where it's located, shows how it's if it's been rotated at all, shows the text, Northern Hemisphere, shows how you wrap the text. So, this is a wonderful tool for doing reverse engineering, and that our policy is to basically share what we've done in these visualizations with you guys. Did that answer your question okay?
Yeah, it does. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
And I'll add just a little bit onto that, Bill, which is just that I think that's, all art is sort of iterative. Everyone builds on top of someone else. And this idea of remixing someone's, you just think about PowerPoint, usually you take an existing deck and you change that. And so similar things apply here. So we'll keep posting them, and ideally more community members are posting too. So that idea that we sort of run the gambit of many types of visualization types is there. But I will sort of forewarn that I think our system's still more primitives, primitives of dots and lines and connections, as opposed to like a wizard for creating, a line chart example. So that will be coming, but in the meantime, building off existing prior work, I think is hopefully very helpful for getting you going.
Yep. Well, it's the way we've all learned how to do flow. We've taken examples and we've all learned and we've built on those and established our own styles and things that are particularly important to us. The muscle memory, for those of you who are going to be working on the flow editor, is down here in this object's timeline. Every data object on every step is highlighted in a color, okay? The swarms are yellow, the connections are yellow-orange, the labels are a little bit oranger than that. The text are color-coded blue, images are color-coded magenta, and I think in this flow we don't have any maps, so there are no maps, but if there were there, they'd be color-coded orange, and buttons are color-coded green. So the muscle memory is you always go here. If I want to take a look at this particular text object, I click here, and then I look to the right to find out how it's done or to do it. So when I'm teaching a beginner's class, it's like a coach dribbling or something. The muscle memory's got to be go here, then go here, okay? And if you get that down and it becomes reflexive, very quickly you become a really good flow editor user. Let's see, I don't think I had anything else that I wanted to cover. Sierra, did you have any additional words of wisdom or anything else you wanted to cover?
Not for me.
Michael.
No, just it's so awesome to see you guys all here. Every week, more and more people seem to come in, or we just meet so many different faces, and just know that we're all here for you. You can always email us or get a hold of us. We're really trying to make sure you guys are all successful. So if you feel like you hit a wall or need ideas, we're here, and we are testing out using Discord soon. So sort of preview to come to try to get a little bit more of a community forum going, because I think that, anyways, just that is to come. But thank you guys all for coming here, and it's just awesome to see all these faces.
Okay, hey, thanks everybody from all around the world. Thanks for coming to this session. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Question.
Andres?
Yeah, I didn't do it before because it's not related to what has been explained today. I just, I'm looking if I'm going to get into this. It's about visualization. Where can I visualize, if I can visualize it in, I see demos in AR, VR. Where can I find info about where can I visualize and show this info?
Mm-hmm. So I believe in our help documentation, we have some areas that describe how to, view on multiple devices. And the simple answer, though, is that it's just from the browser. That's sort of the beauty of sort of this platform, is that you don't need to download an app. You just need to open up whatever web browser is on the device and go to a.flow.gl and log in. So from a cell phone, for Android phones, is going into Chrome, and going into AR mode is enabled for every flow by default. You just hit the AR button. And similar for the iPhone, but there's one app that is necessary until Safari updates WebKit, which is en route to getting WebXR supports, but not yet. So in the meantime, there's a Firefox browser that does support WebXR. And so that's necessary for AR on iPhones. But Oculus Quest works great in the Quest 2 from the Oculus browser. Just go to a.flow.gl. as well as the HoloLens 2 and the Magic Leap 1. And I believe we haven't tested in some of the other headsets, but most everyone seems to use Quest 2. So yeah, that's
so fine. I can visualize it there, screen capture there, and then show it an over. Okay, fine. Thank you.
it, exactly.
Fine. Thanks.
Okay, hey, great. Thanks, Andres, for all your questions. Thanks, everybody.